The boardroom of Kingswell Tech in London was colder than ever. The marble table stretched between us like a battlefield. At its head, Chairman Donovan MacLeod cleared his throat and said, "The board has reached a decision. You are hereby removed from your position, effective immediately." Across the table, Arthur Grayson leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips. His suit was immaculate, his expression triumphant. "Finally," he murmured under his breath, just loud enough for me to hear. I did not react. I only smiled thinly. "Actually, this is my moment to leave. With all your best people." Arthur's smirk faltered. Before he could reply, his phone vibrated violently against the table. One buzz. Then another. Then a flood. Notifications lit up his screen like an alarm. One by one, resignation emails poured in. The silence was heavier than any words. I rose from my chair slowly, the scrape of wood against stone echoing in the room. "Best of luck maintaining your empire with no foundation," I said calmly. Without a backward glance, I walked out. Outside the glass doors, Sophie Bennett, my trusted assistant, waited with a small nod. "They are all with us," she whispered. I exhaled, the cold London air biting my lungs. I had foreseen this betrayal for months. The whispers in the corridors. Secret meetings late at night. Friends who could no longer meet my gaze. It was written in every nervous glance and hurried conversation. 7 years. 7 years of blood, sweat, and every waking moment. Now ripped away by a man I once called my brother. Arthur Grayson. I had saved him once. Believed in him. And now, he was the architect of my ruin. But this was not the end. Arthur thought he had won. He would soon learn that building an empire is easy. Holding it together, without the soul that made it thrive, is another matter. As I crossed the street, a soft rain began to fall. London in November was merciless, but it mirrored the storm inside me perfectly. This was war. A war I had no intention of losing. I glanced back once at the towering glass facade of Kingswell Tech, now a hollow shell. "Enjoy your victory," I whispered to myself. "It will not last." The game had only just begun. The old pub in Camden smelled of damp wood and stale ale. It was perfect. Sophie and I sat at a corner table, far from prying eyes. Slowly, one by one, they arrived. Familiar faces, tired eyes, but the fire had not gone out. Not yet. First was Dominic Ward, a coder whose skills were once the secret engine behind Kingswell's greatest innovations. His hoodie was pulled up, his hands in his pockets, but his sharp gaze scanned the room like a hawk. Next came Elena March, the former head of design. Cool and composed as ever, she brought a calm presence, though I saw the tightness in her jaw. Then Ravi Patel, a strategist with a mind like a chess grandmaster. He offered a short nod before slipping into the seat opposite me. Finally, there was Mia Clark. She had once led our marketing with a ferocity that made competitors tremble. Now she looked different, quieter, almost wary, but the spark returned when our eyes met. "Thank you for coming," I began, voice low. "I know what I am asking is not easy." "We would not be here if we still cared about easy," Dominic said dryly, earning a ripple of agreement. I unfolded a battered map on the table, filled with notes, scribbles, and plans. Kingswell will collapse under its own weight. We are going to build something better. Smarter. Freer. Ravi leaned in. "What about Arthur?" "He will come after us." I met his gaze. "Let him. The more noise he makes, the more he reveals how much he has already lost." The fire in the pub's hearth crackled, throwing long shadows across the room. For a moment, there was only the sound of the rain and the shifting of chairs. Then Mia spoke. "What do you need us to do?" I smiled. "We start small. Silent. Invisible. A whisper before a roar." Sophie handed each of them a folder. Inside were blueprints, code samples, brand ideas. It was everything Kingswell feared. The birth of a revolution, scribbled in ink and dreams. One by one, they nodded. Dominic tapped the table lightly. "Then let us make some noise." Outside, the rain had turned into a downpour. But inside, the storm was ours to command. By the time the first lines of code were written, we were ghosts. We operated from abandoned co-working spaces, borrowed Wi-Fi from unsuspecting cafes, and communicated only through encrypted messages. Trust was a currency rarer than gold, but among us, it was unbreakable. Dominic's fingers flew across his keyboard, crafting the new platform skeleton. It would be decentralized, open, and beyond Kingswell's reach. Elena shaped the visual identity, creating a brand that spoke of hope without ever using the word. Ravi plotted the strategies, weaving paths around the corporate giants who would try to crush us before we could even stand. And I kept watch. It was on a gray Wednesday afternoon when the first warning came. Sophie burst into the tiny basement we called HQ, breathless. They know. She threw a crumpled envelope on the table. Inside was a letter, unsigned but unmistakable. A simple phrase. We are watching. The pub meetings, the encrypted channels, even our hidden sites, compromised. We move tonight, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. No one argued. By midnight, our traces were gone. Laptops wiped. Rooms emptied. Files burned or encrypted beyond recovery. We became rumors. And yet, the danger thrilled us. Each near capture hardened our resolve. Each whisper of Arthur's spies made our fire burn brighter. One evening, as the city drowned in a relentless drizzle, Sophie and I sat atop an empty parking garage, overlooking the Thames. Lights shimmered on the water, distorted by the rain. Do you ever wonder if we are already too late? She asked. I thought about it. About the grip Kingswell had on the world. About how deeply the rot had spread. And yet I smiled. No, I said. Not if we move faster than their fear. Below us, London slept fitfully, unaware that revolution was already threading through its veins. Trust, it seemed, was never truly unbreakable. It began with small things. Files missing from encrypted drives. Scheduled drops intercepted. Meetings that ended with no-shows and silent phones. We have a leak, Ravi said grimly, staring at the wall where our mission plans were pinned with string and colored tacks. But who? Elena whispered, as if saying it louder would make it real. We could not afford to point fingers blindly. Arthur Kingswell had built his empire on suspicion and betrayal. We would not let him turn us against each other. Or so we thought. One cold night, as frost crept across the windows, Dominic failed to show up for a rendezvous. His flat was empty, stripped clean, his devices gone. No signs of struggle. No messages. Only silence. Panic clawed at the edges of our calm. Had he been taken? Had he run? 3 days later, the answer arrived. A new propaganda video surfaced across Kingswell's media network. There, standing beside Arthur, was Dominic, smiling like a man reborn. He spoke about our movement as if it were a disease. He told the world that we were terrorists, manipulators, thieves. Sophie smashed her laptop against the floor, shards scattering like snow. I trusted him, she said through gritted teeth. So did we all. The betrayal carved something out of us. Not just our strength but our hope. If Dominic could be turned, how many others might fall? We met in a derelict train tunnel under Shoreditch, shadows flickering under broken lights. This changes nothing, I said, though my voice betrayed the hollow ache in my chest. It changes everything, Elena replied softly. Perhaps she was right. But if we surrendered now, if we let fear rot us from within, then Dominic would have won. Arthur would have won. And so, beneath the dripping pipes and crumbling stone, we renewed our vow. We would not stop. Not until the chains Kingswell had wrapped around the world were shattered beyond repair. The night London fell silent, we knew something had shifted. It began with whispers, hurried steps across the Thames, coded signals that spoke of forces moving beyond our reach. In the heart of Westminster, a new fortress was rising, not of stone and iron, but of information and surveillance. Arthur Kingswell had unveiled the Titan Protocol, an AI system unlike any before, capable of scanning, predicting, and controlling human behavior on a scale once thought impossible. Every camera, every microphone, every heartbeat in the city became part of its nervous system. The days of rebellion hiding in the cracks were over. Now, even our shadows were hunted. We met in the ruins of an abandoned church, its stained glass shattered by decades of storms. Elena laid out the blueprints we had stolen at great cost. Diagrams of Titan's neural cores, weak points hidden deep within layers of concrete and lies. It's not impenetrable, Ravi said, though his voice wavered. But it's close. We had one chance. A series of data servers in the old Ministry of Defense building. The nerve center where Titan processed its predictive algorithms. If we could infect it with a virus, we could bring the whole thing down. But getting in would be suicide. That's why we don't go in as rebels, I said. We go in as ghosts. Disguises. Forged passes. Every trick we had learned in the long bitter years of running. We would become part of the very machine we meant to destroy. As we planned, a cold wind howled through the broken arches above us, carrying the scent of rain and ashes. Time was slipping through our fingers. Soon, the Titan would awaken fully. And when it did, the world would be its cage. Unless we broke it first. Dawn broke over London like a wound, bleeding pale light across the skyline. We moved through the mist in silence, each of us weighed down by the gravity of what was about to unfold. Elena led the way, her forged credentials burning a hole in her pocket. Ravi adjusted his collar, trying to look like a bored technician rather than a rebel with shaking hands. I kept my head low, heart hammering against my ribs. The Ministry of Defense building loomed before us, a brutalist monolith of gray stone and glass, guarded by automated drones and faceless security officers. Under the new regime, entrances no longer required smiles or explanations. Only a chip in your wrist, and the correct sequence of nods. Our chips were counterfeit, stitched together by desperate hackers working by candlelight. One wrong move, and Titan would see through us in an instant. We passed through the first checkpoint. No alarms. No suspicion. Only the cold stare of a camera that watched us a second too long. Inside, the air was heavy with sterilized metal and synthetic scents. Titan's presence was a heartbeat in the walls, an invisible pressure that made breathing feel like betrayal. We split up, each heading towards our assigned sector. I reached the server vault first. Thick doors loomed ahead, guarded by 2 sentries in black armor, their rifles gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I fumbled with the access card Elena had crafted, my fingers slick with sweat. The green light blinked. Access granted. I slipped inside, heart pounding so loud I was sure the cameras could hear it. The rows of servers stretched into the distance like a forest of glass and steel, humming with power. In the center stood the neural core, Titan's mind condensed into a lattice of light. This was it. As I prepared the virus drive, a shadow moved in the reflection of the steel walls. Someone was watching. And they were not on our side. The figure stepped into the light, and I froze. It was a woman, no older than I was, wearing the black insignia of Titan's inner circle. Her eyes, sharp as broken glass, locked onto mine. For a heartbeat, we stared at each other, 2 ghosts caught between choices. Then she smiled. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, voice smooth as oil. I fumbled for the virus drive, slipping it into the port behind my back. The server core buzzed louder, sensing the intrusion. The woman took a step closer. "I know what you're trying to do," she whispered. "And I can help you." My mind reeled. Was this a trap? A trick? Behind her, sirens began to wail, red lights splashing across the sterile walls. Ravi's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Abort. They know we're inside." But I couldn't move. The woman held out a small device, glowing faintly blue. "This," she said, "will shut Titan down completely. Your virus will only cripple him. Mine will erase him." My hands trembled. Trust her, and we might end Titan forever. Betrayal, however, would be fatal. Security forces stormed the corridor beyond the door, their boots a growing thunder. I had seconds to decide. In a single breath, I snatched the device from her hand and slammed it into the core. The servers screamed as circuits fried and light danced in wild, dying patterns. The woman grabbed my arm and pulled me after her, racing through the maintenance tunnels as alarms howled. Behind us, Titan's mind was crumbling into ash. But ahead, the real danger was just beginning. The tunnels twisted and heaved under our feet as the entire facility began to tear itself apart. The woman, whose name I still did not know, dragged me through collapsing passageways, barely avoiding falling debris and rivers of sparks. The floor trembled like an awakening beast. Ahead, a heavy blast door loomed, half shut and shuddering. "We need to get out," she shouted over the roar. But Titan was not dead yet. A dozen mechanical drones, sleek and sharp like knives, burst from the walls. Their optical sensors burned with furious red light as they converged on us. She hurled a flash bomb. White fire exploded, blinding the machines for a crucial moment. We sprinted forward, ducking under snapping metal claws. My lungs burned. Every step felt like dragging a mountain. Finally, we crashed through the half-closed door, tumbling into the outside night air. I sucked in the cold, metallic tang of freedom. Behind us, the complex shuddered one final time. With a low, shattering moan, it collapsed inward, disappearing into a sinkhole of twisted steel and smoke. Titan was gone. Or so we thought. The woman turned to me, eyes fierce. "You have no idea what you have just started," she said. Before I could ask anything, she pressed a small card into my hand and vanished into the darkness. On the card, only a single word was printed. Awakening. I stared into the night, heart pounding. The fight was over. But the war had just begun.